The Empire tore through the galaxy after Order 66 like a storm that would not stop. Jedi were hunted down system by system, cut off, exposed, and wiped out in a ruthless purge that left almost no one standing. But one name stayed untouched. Yoda, the most powerful Jedi of them all, survived, and that was no accident. Emperor Palpatine knew he was alive. He had Imperial intelligence, probe droid fleets scanning worlds non-stop, and the Inquisitors ready to strike at any whisper of Force activity. And yet, for over 20 years, nothing moved against him. That silence wasn't mercy. It wasn't a mistake. And it definitely wasn't incompetence. When you break down both Canon and Legends material, 6 connected reasons start to show a bigger strategy at play. Leaving Yoda alive actually worked in Palpatine's favor. Hunting him down would have created more problems than it solved. First, look at where the Empire's real focus was. Resources tell the truth. Palpatine didn't direct his top leadership toward chasing one old Jedi hiding in exile. Instead, he positioned Grand Moff Tarkin at Sentinel Base, overseeing construction of the Death Star. That wasn't random. In the canon novel Tarkin, this assignment is clearly described as deliberate. A long-term move to build a weapon that would lock the galaxy in fear and secure the Empire's future forever. If wiping out every last Jedi had truly been the top mission, the Empire's sharpest military brain wouldn't have been babysitting a superweapon project for years. Meanwhile, the Inquisitors' former Jedi twisted to the dark side handled what was basically cleanup duty. They tracked scattered survivors, small threats, loose ends. Their operations were methodical, yes, but they weren't treated as the centerpiece of Imperial power. And that difference says everything. Instead of treating Jedi hunting as some top-level emergency, Palpatine showed exactly what mattered to him right after Order 66. In the Legends novel Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, his first big order to Vader says it all. He didn't send his new enforcer chasing Yoda across the stars. He sent him to Mercana to deal with clone troopers who refused to carry out Order 66. Think about that. When Vader asked about surviving Jedi during the briefing, Palpatine brushed it off. He wasn't stressing over Vader's pathetic former friends. He made it clear that if Vader ran into a Jedi along the way, sure, eliminate them. But that wasn't the mission. Jedi killings were side objectives, not the core assignment. The real goal was power control, making sure the clone army obeyed the Empire without hesitation or doubt. That tells you everything about the Emperor's mindset. Control the system first, clean up later. Now look at what happened after the Senate duel with Yoda. The two clashed across the Senate chamber's massive floating pods in a brutal fight that shook the Republic's heart. Neither one fell easily. When Yoda dropped hundreds of feet to the chamber floor, Palpatine followed, scanning below from his pod, hunting for any sign of him. But here's the twist. Bail Organa arrived in a speeder, pulled Yoda out, and escaped before Palpatine could close the trap. And what did the Emperor do next? Did he launch a galaxy-wide manhunt? No. He went straight to Mustafar to personally oversee Vader's rescue and medical reconstruction after his defeat by Obi-Wan Kenobi. That decision screams priority. Securing his new apprentice mattered more than chasing an exiled Jedi into hiding. Palpatine wasn't distracted. He was calculating. One Jedi was important enough for the Emperor to rush across the galaxy and personally oversee his recovery. The other, left alone. No pursuit, no emergency orders, nothing. That decision shaped the next 20 years in a way most people completely miss. 2 full decades passed with 0 recorded Imperial search operations for Yoda. No probe droid sweeps over Dagobah, no fleet patrols tightening the net, no high-alert task force deployed to drag him out of exile. And this is the same Empire that could project military force across entire star systems without blinking. The canon comic series Darth Vader, Dark Lord of the Sith, makes something very clear. The Grand Inquisitor kept a priority target list. On that list were names like Yoda, Quinlan Vos, and Jocasta Nu. So the Emperor absolutely knew who survived. These weren't rumors. These were tracked, high-value Jedi. But here's the twist. When it came time for real missions, Palpatine ordered Vader to capture Jocasta Nu alive, to extract her knowledge of the Jedi archives. That was actionable intelligence. That was strategic value. Meanwhile, Yoda's name just sat there on a list with no strike team ever dispatched. That's not forgetfulness. That's strategy. And it wasn't just Yoda. The only other surviving Council Master, Obi-Wan Kenobi, also avoided direct Imperial pursuit while hiding on Tatooine. The Empire didn't chase ghosts unless they stepped into the light. If a Jedi stayed hidden, Palpatine didn't burn resources dragging them out. So the real question isn't why Yoda survived. It's why Palpatine wanted him to. And that's where the second reason changes everything. Keeping Yoda alive in exile wasn't weakness. It was domination on a deeper level. From a Sith philosophy standpoint, crushing someone physically is one thing. Breaking them spiritually, that's a far greater trophy. And when you mix that mindset with cold political strategy, Palpatine's decision starts to look ruthless in a whole new way. In Revenge of the Sith, novelized by Matthew Stover, Vader's existence, after Mustafar, is described as endless torment. Light burns him, breathing hurts. His own body becomes a prison he can't escape. When Emperor Palpatine found Darth Vader broken and burning, he could have left him there. He could have let it end. But he didn't. Instead, he saved him to suffer. That wasn't mercy. That was control. In the canon comics, when Vader learns the truth about Padme Amidala and explodes in grief, Palpatine tells him her death gave him a gift of pain. A gift. He makes it clear, accept the suffering or perish. And when Vader chooses to live, the Emperor immediately strikes him with Force lightning and orders him to defend himself. Survival through agony. That's the Sith code in action. Now apply that same logic to Yoda. Killing him would have been quick, clean, final. But forcing the former Grand Master into hiding, into isolation, into decades of watching the galaxy fall under tyranny, that's psychological warfare on another level. The Empire handled Jedi fates with a clear pattern. On Stygian Prime, the Inquisitorius used the remains of Luminara Unduli as bait. False broadcasts claimed she was alive and imprisoned, drawing surviving Jedi into traps. The Inquisitor even admitted her remains still served the Empire by luring others to their doom. That's the playbook. A dead Jedi can inspire martyrs. A broken, hidden, or weaponized one? That creates fear, confusion, and false hope. Yoda's survival wasn't an oversight. It was part of the design. A fallen, honored Jedi Master can become a legend overnight. If captured or killed publicly, they turn into a symbol people rally behind. Rescue missions get planned, hope spreads, stories grow bigger than facts. But keeping someone hidden? That kills the myth before it starts. No body, no spectacle, no martyr. Still, Yoda's value to the Empire went way beyond just avoiding martyrdom. Years after Order 66, during his mysterious communication with Ezra Bridger on Lothal in Star Wars Rebels, Yoda didn't just offer wisdom, he criticized the very Jedi Order he once led. That's huge. He told Ezra that thousands of Jedi once stood strong, but when they rushed into the Clone Wars, everything changed. Arrogance pushed them into conflict too fast. Fear, anger, and hate crept in, and little by little, they lost themselves. This wasn't an outsider throwing shade. This was the former Grand Master speaking from experience. Yoda even admitted he fought for too many years because he was consumed by fear. Fear. Coming from the highest authority in the Order, that confession hits different. And that's exactly why Palpatine didn't chase him down. A dead Jedi Master becomes flawless in memory. A living one who openly admits failure? That's a crack in the foundation. Look at how Kanan Jarrus reacted when he believed Luminara Unduli might still be alive. He remembered her as brave, disciplined, compassionate, perfect in memory because she was gone. But when he reflected on Yoda's teachings, he admitted some of them confused him. That difference matters. Luminara stayed frozen as an ideal. Yoda stayed alive and openly said the Jedi helped cause their own downfall. A living legend who questions the Order damages its legacy way more than a silent martyr ever could. And that kind of damage? It serves the Empire just fine. Silencing Yoda quietly did more for the Empire than executing him ever could. Just look at the public public destruction of Jedi lightsabers on the temple steps. That event wasn't random rage. It was stage-managed propaganda. Mas Amedda stood there announcing that citizens would never again fear the Jedi, while sabers were destroyed in a controlled, dramatic spectacle. Among them, Yoda's own lightsaber, recovered from the Senate chamber. That move was calculated. Destroy the weapon, erase the symbol, but don't parade the Jedi Master himself. If Palpatine had publicly hunted and eliminated the former Grand Master, it would have sent a different message. It would have reminded the galaxy that Yoda was powerful enough to demand Imperial attention, important enough to chase, dangerous enough to fear. That kind of spotlight creates legend status fast. Instead, Yoda vanished into exile on Dagobah, a forgotten swamp world that looked like the end of everything. No grand execution, no public trial, just silence. And that silence worked in the Empire's favor way more than a loud victory ever could. But strategy only works if you can back it up with force. And here's the third reason things get real. Palpatine may not have been able to confront Yoda again so easily. Years into exile, Yoda showed he hadn't lost his power. On Dagobah, when Luke Skywalker watched his X-Wing sink into the swamp, he believed it was impossible to lift, too heavy, too massive, too far gone. Then Yoda raised the entire starfighter with calm focus. Using the Force alone, Luke stood there, stunned, in total disbelief. And Yoda called him out on it, saying that disbelief was exactly why he failed. That moment proved something critical. Decades away from battle hadn't weakened him. The Grand Master still had full command of his abilities, and that changes the risk calculation completely. During the Senate chamber duel, the ancient Jedi didn't get overwhelmed. He matched Emperor Palpatine strike for strike in a brutal, extended clash that shook the Republic to its core. The fight showed near equal effectiveness on both sides. Yoda didn't retreat because he lacked power. He withdrew because the battle shifted into chaotic pod warfare, where positioning, not strength, decided the outcome. Now compare that to Darth Vader after Mustafar. His condition put him on a completely different level. Early in the Imperial era, when he faced Jedi Master Kirak Infila, the encounter left his armor wrecked and his body pushed to the limit. He barely survived and had to recover in a back-to-tank afterward. That contrast is loud. In the Legends novel Dark Lord, The Rise of Darth Vader, the difference is clear. The Emperor stood at total dominance. Vader existed in constant loss, physically broken, emotionally tormented, rebuilding himself through pain. That creates a serious power gap between the ancient Grand Master and the armored enforcer. While Vader struggled through intense duels and needed long recovery periods, Yoda was still performing feats Luke Skywalker thought were impossible. And let's not forget, he had already gone head-to-head with Palpatine himself. The limitations weren't just about Vader either. Look at the Inquisitors. They were built to hunt knights and Padawans, not top-tier masters. When the Grand Inquisitor fought Canon and Legends on Stygian Prime, the duel was competitive, but that's knight-level combat. A confrontation with Yoda? That's a whole different storm. And Palpatine knew it. Canon and Legends was only a former Padawan when Order 66 shattered the Jedi Order. His training was incomplete. He never reached full master status. And yet, when he clashed with the Grand Inquisitor, the fight wasn't a quick shutdown. It was extended. It was intense. And Kanan survived. That detail matters. If the Inquisitorius had truly been built to overpower Jedi Masters with ease, an undertrained former Padawan wouldn't have lasted long. He would have been crushed fast. The fact that he wasn't shows the limits of the system. These hunters were dangerous, but they weren't unstoppable. Look at Reva Savander. She was promoted to Grand Inquisitor after successfully tracking Obi-Wan Kenobi to Jabiim. That promotion alone proves how rare master-level engagements were. She didn't defeat a council-level master in open combat. She located him, and that achievement earned her the highest rank. If hunting Jedi Masters was routine, that wouldn't have been promotion-worthy. It would have been standard procedure. The Inquisitorius itself was designed with limits. Most recruits were former Jedi who felt bitterness or disillusionment. The focus wasn't on raw elite power, it was on psychological vulnerability. They were tools shaped by resentment, not unstoppable champions. Palpatine even made it clear that high-value targets like Jocasta Nu required Sith-level handling. Inquisitors weren't trusted with the full picture because they weren't Sith. When Darth Vader hunted Kirak Infila, he went alone. No Inquisitor backup, no shared glory. The Empire's system was built to suppress scattered survivors. It wasn't built to confidently confront the Jedi Order at its peak power. And Yoda? He was the peak. The reality is simple. Hunting the former Grand Master wasn't just risky, it ran into hard operational limits. The Empire didn't have an unlimited reach, and that created a natural ceiling on what they could realistically pursue. Now look at where Yoda chose to hide. Dagobah wasn't some perfectly invisible sanctuary. It wasn't shielded by secret cloaks or ancient barriers. It was ignored because it didn't matter strategically. That's the fourth reason no serious pursuit ever launched. In the Legends comics Star Wars tales, specifically The Hidden, Imperial forces actually entered the Dagobah system. A Star Destroyer deployed probe droids. When one probe was destroyed, you might expect alarms to go off. Instead, the commanding admiral shut it down. He openly stated he doubted cowardly rebels would ever build a base on a swamp world that hostile. The environment alone made it undesirable. Another officer even mentioned that the planet's thick atmosphere had caused transmitter interference before. That line proves something big. The Empire had operational history there, so they could search Dagobah. They just chose not to. The decision wasn't about incapability. It was about value. Dagobah offered no resources, no trade routes, no political leverage, no military advantage. It was mud, fog, predators, and storms. From an Imperial perspective, it was worthless. And that's how the Empire operated. They controlled thousands of systems, but only fortified worlds that boosted power or influence. Strategic hubs got fleets and permanent garrisons. Backwater planets without economic or tactical importance, they fell off the radar. Dagobah wasn't hidden because it was unreachable. It was hidden because it was irrelevant. And that kind of irrelevance? That's the perfect cover. The Empire poured its energy into the core worlds and massive projects like the Death Star. That kind of infrastructure swallowed resources that could have gone toward wide planetary surveillance. You can't monitor every swamp when you're building a superweapon meant to control the entire galaxy. When Luke Skywalker arrived on Dagobah years later, he saw exactly what the Empire had already written off: mud, fog, twisted trees, and nothing else. No cities, no industry, no tech hubs. Just a tiny hut and a swamp that swallowed his X-Wing the second he landed. That detail says a lot. The planet itself fought back. The environment alone made it useless for military staging. No clear landing zones, no infrastructure, no strategic leverage. From an Imperial command perspective, it was a logistical headache with zero payoff. In the Revenge of the Sith novelization, Yoda's arrival on Dagobah is described as him exploring an unfamiliar swamp world. That's key. He hadn't trained there before. He didn't pick it because it had some rare force concealment field. It wasn't mystical camouflage. It was irrelevance. After Order 66, multiple Jedi survived by scattering across the galaxy. They didn't all find secret temples or hidden sanctuaries. Many simply vanished into worlds the Empire didn't care about. Dagobah was one of countless outer systems technically under Imperial control but practically ignored. Yoda wasn't untouched because he was invisible. He was untouched because he didn't matter to Imperial logistics. But here's where it gets deeper. Even operational limits and strategic indifference don't fully explain why Palpatine let this situation ride for 20 years. The real twist is psychological. By the time the Empire solidified its grip, the Sith Lord had already beaten Yoda in a way that went beyond physical combat. And that ideological victory, that's where the fifth reason changes everything. The ideological defeat didn't take years to sink in. It happened instantly. Right after escaping the Senate chamber, Yoda didn't talk about regrouping. He didn't promise revenge. He told Bail Organa the truth: he had failed. This was during the Republic's final hours, before the Empire was even officially declared. And the Grand Master already accepted total defeat. That's powerful. According to the Revenge of the Sith novelization, his self-criticism was direct and brutal. He said it was his failure. He failed the Jedi. He admitted he had been too old, too rigid, too arrogant to see that the old way was not the only way forward. No excuses, no blame shifting, just full responsibility. Then it went even deeper. Yoda realized he had trained generations of Jedi using the same model that trained him centuries earlier. But the galaxy had changed. Politics shifted, war evolved, fear spread in new ways, and the Jedi Order stayed stuck because he refused to let it adapt. That's not just tactical defeat, that's ideological collapse. He admitted the system he protected was outdated for the era it was facing. He acknowledged that his leadership helped shape an order that couldn't survive the pressure of the Clone Wars. That level of self-awareness is devastating and final. Years later, when he communicated with Ezra Bridger on Lothal in Star Wars Rebels, the message hadn't changed. He explained that thousands of Jedi once existed before they rushed into the Clone Wars. That choice, he said, was driven by arrogance and fear. That confession proves something critical. Yoda didn't just lose a duel. He accepted that the philosophy he defended had cracks in it. And once a leader publicly admits the foundation was flawed, the war is already won in a different way. Then came the hardest truth of all. Yoda judged the Jedi Order openly. He said their arrogance pushed them into war too fast. Fear, anger, and hate tightened their grip until the Order was spiritually consumed. And here's the key part, he didn't blame the Emperor for that. He called it an internal failure. The darkness wasn't forced on them from the outside, it grew from within. Yoda even admitted he fought for too many years because he himself was driven by fear. That confession hits heavy. The Grand Master wasn't claiming corruption by some unstoppable external force. He accepted responsibility for the culture he helped shape. That means the Jedi lost the war of ideas before the Empire even finished rising. By the time Palpatine secured his throne, Yoda had already declared ideological defeat. Hunting him down after that would have changed nothing. In fact, it might have exposed something dangerous: Imperial insecurity. The sixth and final reason is about optics and power projection. Palpatine's regime thrived on the image of overwhelming dominance. According to the canon novel Tarkin, the Death Star wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol designed to shape and secure the Empire's future through intimidation alone. The strategy wasn't constant battle, it was fear so strong that resistance felt pointless. Imperial doctrine depended on appearing untouchable, absolute, inevitable. If the Emperor suddenly launched a desperate manhunt for one aging exile, what message would that send? That he felt threatened, that something out there still mattered, that the Empire wasn't fully secure. Chasing Yoda would contradict the entire illusion of invincibility, and Palpatine understood something critical. True dominance doesn't react. It stands still and lets the galaxy believe resistance is already dead. This doctrine didn't just sit on paper. It shaped how the entire Imperial system behaved. Look at the Dagobah probe incident again. When the commanding admiral ordered the destroyed probe's evidence erased, his concern wasn't tactical failure. It was optics. Reporting a loss made the Empire look imperfect. And in a regime built on projecting absolute control, even small cracks were unacceptable. That mindset ran deep. Launching a galaxy-wide hunt for Yoda would have shattered the illusion overnight. It would signal that one exiled Jedi required fleets, intelligence sweeps, and massive resources. It would show the Emperor feared what that one survivor might still represent. And that's the key. Fear validates the target. If the Empire mobilizes against you, it proves you matter. It turns you into a symbol. It suggests the regime isn't as secure as it claims. Palpatine understood this better than anyone. The Sith Lord had already won the war that truly counted. He dismantled what the Jedi stood for. He exposed their flaws. He watched their Grand Master admit failure and retreat into exile. Chasing him after that would have weakened the Empire's image of total dominance. Within this framework, pursuing Yoda wouldn't demonstrate strength, it would expose limits. It would admit that the Emperor still saw a threat where he claimed none existed. Palpatine didn't need to hunt him. The ideological battle was finished long before the Empire fully locked down power. And if this breakdown changed how you see the rise of Imperial rule, make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video. There's a whole deeper layer to how Palpatine built his dominance from the shadows to the throne. Make sure you like, subscribe, share this video, and I'll see you in the next one.